Welcome back. Welcome back. This is the People's Voice. I am Trey Evans, and I am the People's Voice. Thank you again for checking out the podcast this week. As always, it is greatly appreciated. As always, we thank everyone who has taken some time to listen to the podcast today. The People's Voice podcast is an investigative news podcast where I'm dedicated to covering stories and social issues that I feel are either buried or sometimes underreported by social and mainstream media. The purpose is to cover those topics, offer some insightful analysis and possible actionable solutions to address those topics and issues that I cover. The People's Voice podcast can be heard on all podcast platforms, and we put out a new new episode each and every Friday. And then we also put a video out on YouTube as well for those who would like to watch the podcast. But in any event, we say welcome to the People's Voice podcast. So today I want to get into the topic of classism. I want to talk about classism. And I want to talk about this today because there was recently a story, or an announcement, if you will, that came out from Costco. Costco, the warehouse retailer, big shopping center. I don't know how you describe them. I guess warehouse retailer, where many people, including myself. So let me just be transparent before I even get started. So I shop at Costco, and I have an executive membership, and I'm getting ready to talk about that, today. But they recently announced that they will be allowing those who have the highest tier membership. They're going to allow those individuals to shop before other members are allowed to come into the store on a daily basis. And when I saw this story, I was kind of like, well, because it reeks and rings of classism, right? I mean, it's just, go ahead and sound the alarm if no one has ever heard of the term or seen an example of classism. This right here is a clear-cut example, in my opinion. So I want to talk about that today. I want to talk about their decision to do this. I also want to talk about classism. And the reason why I'm talking about this today, because it is, in its theory, is so very much aligned with many of the points or many of the actions that you often also see within racism. And so I want to talk about that today, kind of give a little definition of what classism is, and then talk about how comparative that is with many of the constructs of racism. But yeah, so in terms of the story, matter of fact, let me play the story so you can hear it as well. This is from News 3, where they covered
Thank you for staying with us.
They covered this topic about Costco's decision. So let me play that first, and then I'll go a little bit more into what that looks like, and then talk about classism as well.
Costco's controversial shopping policy will officially take effect on Monday. Back in June, the warehouse chain allowed shoppers with executive membership to enter the store from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. during the week. That meant other customers had to wait until after 10 to shop. The company said the policy was not strictly enforced, but now Costco says its grace period is ending, and the policy will take hold on Labor Day. Some customers are not happy with the change. The company They say the company is favoring its higher paying members and alienating the rest.
And that right there is an accurate statement, right there. I don't think anyone can dispute that in terms of the favoring and the alienation of other customers. The reason I wanted to talk about this is because, in my opinion, this sets a dangerous precedent, because what ends up happening is that you now have other stores possibly mimicking what Costco has decided to do here in terms of giving preferential treatment to their highest paying members. Now, for those who may not know, in order to go into Costco to shop, you have to have a membership. And, many people shop there, including myself. Like I said, I shop there because you're supposed to be able to buy bulk items. Well, you can buy bulk items, but it's supposed to be more cost effective. So when you are buying non-perishable items like toilet paper or detergent, things of that nature, you can buy it in bulk. So it's supposed to save you a couple of dollars. But their system, they have a membership policy. And basically, in order to get into the store, you have to have a membership. And their membership program comes in 3 different tiers. So they have an executive membership. Then they have matter of fact, I'll just pull it up. I don't have to guess because I actually went to their site. And for those of you watching YouTube, you can see this, but they have the 3-tier membership, like I said. So they have an executive membership, they have a business membership, and then they have a Gold Star membership. Now, the business membership has the highest annual membership fee, which is $130 per year. And just for transparency, I do have the executive membership. Obviously didn't know this was going to go into this direction, but that's a whole nother conversation, but I just want to be transparent. And then they have the business membership, and then they have the Gold Star membership. And each membership tier basically gives individuals a certain amount of like you get rewards and kind of like cash back with the highest one, and different other little perks, which is why they have the 3-tiered plan. But in any event, now with this new decision, they basically are saying those who have an executive membership can come into the store earlier than those who don't. Matter of fact, I was reading the story here from on ABC News, and where they broke down the hours. So as you heard in that report, as of September 1st, individuals that have an executive membership at Costco can now are allowed to shop between 9 and 10 a.m. And then after 10 a.m., everyone else with other memberships are allowed to then come into the store. And then on the weekdays, similar, not on Saturdays, 9 to 9:30, executive members can shop. Then other members can come in. And then on Sundays, similar to Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., executive members can shop. And then everyone else is allowed to come into the store. But again, I'm talking about this because it sets a precedent that I think is very dangerous, and kind of reverts us back to policies of Jim Crow and segregation and things of that nature. And I know there are people listening to this saying, come on, man, we talking about Costco. But again, all it takes is one major company or one major organization to make some subtle changes, and all of a sudden you start to see a rippling effect with other services. Now, in terms of classism, I should have gone ahead and defined that before I got into this. So just for those who don't know, classism, and I'm reading a definition here from Britannica, it says classism is a form of personal bias or a form of personal bias or prejudice or a pattern of institutional discrimination based on social class and typically directed against persons or groups of a lower socioeconomic status. So that's what classism is. And then you have different forms of classism. And this particular form that we're seeing here with Costco's decision is what is defined as institutional classism. And institutional classism basically is when you have institutions, whether there are government or corporate, when they start to enact policies that discriminate or alienate individuals based on their social, their economic status. Why is this important? Again, and I'll keep reiterating this, is because this sets a precedent. So now at Costco, just so you understand the demographics of their customer, I pulled this up from Investopedia.com. Their customer base very much is in line with what is happening or what can happen when you start to institute institutional classism into business. So the demographics of their business, and this is based on their information, I believe that Investopedia gathered, it says 66% of Costco customers are Gen X or baby boomers. And these are individuals that are born between 1946 and 1981. But more importantly, and it says that 61% of their customers are white. And we know, factual, that the wealth gap between white Americans and other Americans of color, especially when you start talking about Latinos and blacks, there is a huge gap. So if 61% of your customer base is white, that probably means that 61% of the majority of your membership base is probably in the tier in terms of executive memberships. Going a little bit further, it also says about 46% of their members are middle income households, and this is anywhere between 40,000 and 125,000. And it says 36% are what is considered to be high income households, and these are households that are typically over $125,000. So when you start $125,000 annually, so now when you start to get down into the weeds, this becomes not just about, oh, this person can afford it and this person can't. Now you're starting to get into the racial makeup of things, which gets very, very dangerous. Now, in terms of the comparison between institutional racism and institutional classism, because like I said, it's very similar in terms of the alienation of people based on a certain category. So I found this definition on the sociology workshop, where they did a video on this, where they defined classism. So I want to play this first so you can hear it firsthand, and then I want to play a video that I found on institutional racism so you can kind of hear how closely aligned they are, and then I'll close out from there. But this is again from the sociology workshop, where they were talking about institutional classism.
Classism. Next, we have institutional classism. This occurs when organizations have policies that disadvantage lower class individuals. Think about hiring practices that favor candidates from prestigious schools or dress codes that penalize those who cannot afford expensive clothing. These practices can create barriers for people trying to advance in their careers.
And I'm stopping it right there, but said very, very clearly, people that cannot afford institutional classism. So when institutions put in place barriers and policies for those who can and cannot afford to do certain things, that is considered to be institutional classism. Now I want to play a definition here about institutional racism, and I want you to hear the similarities. This is from Othering and Belonging Institute, where they broke down institutional racism. So let me play that, and then I'll close out from there.
One of them is called institutional racism. And crucially, it doesn't require a racist individual or racist beliefs. Institutional racism refers to the ways that many corporate, governmental, or organizational policies and practices produce racially unequal outcomes within those institutions, even though those policies and practices may seem neutral and appear to treat everyone the same.
And that is very important, because this is a decision where I know there are those who are going to argue this and say, well, you don't have to go to Costco, or they're going to say, well, they already have this in place, because when you get on an airplane, there's first class, business class, and coach, all clean. But again, when you start to get to this level where you have stores who are just can make these decisions to say that if you can't afford to do this, you are not allowed to be here at this time, it sets a very dangerous precedent. It like I said, it rings of Jim Crow-ish. It rings of segregation. It rings of, don't go through the back door, separate fountains, separate bathrooms based on race. It just rings that, and it just brings me back to, again, one more time.
Now, the question I raise is this America?
And, everyone who is seeing this, you take note, and something needs to be done about this, because again, just like it was just said, it seems subtle on the surface, but it can have rippling effects that we're going to see, that we can possibly see with other decisions that are made based on this. But that's what I want to talk about today. Like I said, I want to kind of, put this on the radar for those who may have missed it, or maybe you saw it and it was kind of like, oh, you kind of just brushed it by and didn't think too much about it. This is a big issue. And I'm trying to figure out how do I navigate this? Because like I said, I am a Costco customer. This is not a commercial or member. And this was definitely disappointing to hear, 1,000%. So now I have to navigate and think about what I want to do in regards to this, because, this seems unfair in so many ways, and it's clearly a money play, and I get it. I get it, but I still don't like it. And so, of course, you're free to have your opinion as well. And if you want to leave a comment, you can reach me on Instagram at the People's Voice Podcast. And then you can also leave a comment as well when I post a video on YouTube, if you want to comment there. But that is my time for today. As always, dreams are not just for sleeping. Please wake up and live your dreams. My name is Trey Evans, the People's Voice. Tell somebody about the dream. Salute.